guys graphed using x and y intercepts. The main idea of yesterday was every x-intercept you know. Oh, that's not a good start. What do you know about every x-intercept?
Y equals 0.
Bingo. Y equals 0. And what do you know about every y-intercept? X equals 0. Okay. Whew. Got a little nervous there that you didn't remember anything from yesterday. And so that's not a big deal, and it wasn't terribly hard. But on a problem like we got yesterday of y equals negative 13/9, that would kind of suck to graph. Agreed?
Yeah.
So today I'm going to show you a process that will help you be more efficient. Okay? Let's think back. Way back to lesson 3.1. We talked about the word proportional. When you look at a graph and you can tell a graph is proportional, what do you see? Goes through the origin. One other thing. Very good. It's a straight line, Jack. Goes through 0, 0, and it's a straight line. That meant it was proportional. But we also have non-proportional linear relationships, which is what we're going to see today. And they do not go through 0, 0. They do not go through the origin. So in order to graph those, we are going to use slope intercept. Ooh, if you could read that. Intercept form. Slope intercept form to write equations for these lines. Slope intercept form is a form that you are going to get very familiar with because it shows up in a lot of your classes, your math from here on out. The equation for slope intercept form is y equals mx plus b. M and B are your important pieces of this equation. M stands for, what has M stood for in the past? M is slope. And B is your y-intercept. Now, part of this looks familiar, agreed? You have used y equals mx when we were talking about direct variation. Y equals 6 and x equals 7. Find the direct variation equation. Because direct variation equations are proportional, so they went through 0, 0, so they didn't need that plus b. So today we're going to expand on that. We're going to have more equations involved, ones that have a y-intercept other than 0. One thing to remember, though, m is slope. And slope is always two directions, rise over run. Rise, you can go up or down. Run, you can go left or right. How would you know if you go up or down? Bingo, nicely done, Aspen. If it's negative or positive. 97% of the time, you're going to go to the right towards Mrs. Hoosier's class. Okay? So y equals mx plus b. I'm probably going to say that to you about 50 times today. So the first thing they're going to ask us to do is, hey, just take this equation and find me the slope and the y-intercept. The nice thing is, when y is by itself, when it's just y equals, you can say, boom, there's the slope, boom, there's the y-intercept. Your slope is always the number in front of the x. It's always the coefficient of x. The y-intercept is the number that does not have a letter with it. Okay? So, in y equals 8 minus 2/5 x, who can tell me what my slope is? Negative 2/5. Nicely done, Calix. The number in front of x, or the number multiplied by x, is my slope. Somebody else, what's my y-intercept? Positive or negative, Nolan? Positive. How do you know? Bingo. Perfect. There's not a negative in front of that 8, meaning it has to be positive. So it doesn't always have to be the first number is your slope, the second number is your y-intercept. Okay? They can be flip-flopped. They can be flip-flopped. You're like, that's not so bad. And then I get this. This one's not so nice because I cannot just pull the information from this because y is not by itself. But you guys have the skill set to get y by itself. Think back to chapter 2, solving equations. I need to get y by itself. So don't think of this having an x right away. If I needed to move this 4 to the other side, how do I move the 4 to the other side? I would subtract 4 to the other side. Now this one's a 4x, so we're going to subtract 4x to the other side. You add or subtract to move the whole thing to the other side. So these cancel out. I drag down 3y. Now, can I put -2 and -4 together? Sorry, -2 and -4x together. Why not? Very good. They're not the same. They are not like terms. So we end up with -2 minus 4x. Now I need this to just be a 1y instead of 3y. So what should I do next? Divide by 3. And make sure you divide everything by 3. So you would wind up with y equals y equals. This is where you guys give me the answer. You don't need a calculator. -2/3. I would just put the x off to the right, but you're totally right. -2/3 minus 4/3 x. And the reason I say to move the x off to the side, because really this is going to be your, say it louder. Somebody whispered it. What is this? Your slope, okay? This is your slope. Now that y is by itself, you can tell me the slope and the y-intercept. The slope is -4/3 because it's the number in front of x. The number multiplied with x. And your y-intercept is -2/3. The number that is not multiplied by any variable. So as long as you have y by itself, it's super easy to just pull out that information. Okay, so they might give us an equation and ask us to pull information. Or they may say, write an equation of a line. So now we're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form with a slope of -3 and a y-intercept of -4. Slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Reminder, m is slope. B is the y-intercept. M is slope. B is the y-intercept. How am I supposed to figure this out? It tells us, right? Don't overthink this. It tells us the slope. It tells us the y-intercept. So my equation would say y equals -3x minus 4. Y equals -3x minus 4. That's not so bad. Look at this one. Write an equation of the line below. So first they ask us to write an equation. They say, hey, here's the slope. Here's the y-intercept. Now they say, hey, write the equation of this graph. Okay, so we're still using, y equals mx plus b. And I still have to fill in my slope, and I still have to fill in my y-intercept. And Calix so kindly pointed out last time, it just told us the information. Okay, well, it doesn't just tell us the information, it gives us a graph. So how am I supposed to know the slope of my y-intercept? Aiden? Okay, what do you mean? You like writing this as an ordered pair? Is that what you're thinking? Okay. How am I going to find my slope and my y-intercept here? Becca? Bingo. Your slope is rise over run. Now, if Aiden wrote down this other point, could he use y minus y over x minus x? Absolutely. But we can also count on our graph. We have to start at which point? Why? Nope. Nope. Why do you're right, I'm going to start at this, but why? You always start closest to the left side, closest to Lisa's room. Okay? Am I rising up or am I rising down? Down. How far? 8? Is that what I heard? That would take us to here. Then am I going left or right? How far? 8 again. If I'm going down 8, what does that do to my 8? And right is a positive. -8 divided by 8 is -1. Okay, cool. I got my slope. Still can't write the equation. Don't have my y-intercept. How am I going to figure out my y-intercept? How do you know that? The whole point of a y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, right? Everybody agree with calyx? It crosses the y-axis right at that 4. That's my y-intercept. +4 or -4? It's positive. It's above 0, 0. Okay? So I know my y-intercept is 4. So I know my slope. I know my y-intercept. So my equation is? Careful. You're filling in y equals mx plus b. Y equals? Agree or disagree? Slope is -1. Y-intercept is 4. Bingo. Technically, could you write y equals 4 minus 1x?
Because 4 is y. Because it's on the y-axis.
Technically, you could. 4, the y-intercept, is positive, number by itself. So you don't have to write it as mx plus b. That's what I like to do. It's easier to spot, but technically you could put that 4 first. So they gave us information, we put it in equation. They gave us a graph, we put it in equation, flip it over. Now what'd they give us? A table. A table of values for the linear function is shown below. Find the slope and the y-intercept and find the equation of the function. How do I find the slope out of a table? Aiden? Okay, so we got to do those swoops. Remember that? What's my change from -2 to -1? +1, -1 to 0, 0 to 1, 1 to 2. As Aiden said, they're all 1 across the top, right? Now go to the bottom, -5 to -1. -1 to 3, 3 to 7, 7 to 11. Oh boy, here's the question of the hour. Which letter goes on top? Oh, so which number is that? 4. Very good. 4 over 1, which is, so what did we just find? The slope. Very good. Okay, what's my y-intercept? It is not 4. Is it the 1? Nope. What'd you guys tell me you knew from yesterday about every y-intercept?
Equals 0.
What equals 0?
X.
X. Look at your table. What's your y-intercept?
0.
3. Look at your x is 0 right here, yes? What's your y value there? 3. That's your y-intercept. When x equals 0, that's your y-intercept. So your y-intercept is 3. So I have a slope of 4, a y-intercept of 3. So my equation is? Alex likes to be tricky. Sometimes they're going to put y-intercept first, then slope. Pay attention. Just like yesterday, sometimes they put x-intercept, then y-intercept. Sometimes they put y-intercept, then x-intercept. So cool, we can write our equation 3 different ways. Fantastic, Miss Off. The whole point of this was that you were going to show us a more efficient way to graph. So here comes our graph. When y is by itself, you can look at it and say, here's the slope, here's the y-intercept. So y is by itself. Take a minute, everyone, write down your slope, write down your y-intercept, and I'm going to call on somebody to give me that information. Remember where you find your slope. It's the number in front of x, the number that is the coefficient. Davion's favorite word. I still haven't seen my money. All of you were witnesses. He promised me 15,000. And it's... Do you know the slope? Or was it bugging you too much?
No, I forgot.
Evan, do you know the slope? Careful. -3/4. Sage, you know the y-intercept? -1. Nicely done. My slope is the number in front of the x. My y-intercept is the number that does not have a variable with it. And I like how this is written. Miss Hoff kept saying, put the negative in the top. Put the negative in the top. So today I'm going to remind you. Put the negative in the top. Okay? So write this down. The very first thing you do now, plot the y-intercept. Plot the y-intercept. Y-axis. Don't forget y-axis. So many people plotted on the wrong axis. So right now, go put a point on the y-axis at -1. Step number 2 is to use your slope. Remember, slope is rise over run. And our slope is -3/4. What 2 directions can you do on rise? Up or down? What are we going to do? Down. Why? Negative. Very good. Down. How many? 3. And then always go to your right. 4. Down 3. Right 4. Now, go back to your y-intercept. Go back to the y-intercept. What am I going to do? Down 3. 1, 2, 3. Don't put a dot. Don't put a dot. Don't put a dot. Now I got to go right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now put the point on your graph. Go down 3, right 4. I think you're at 4, -4. Yes? And then you can draw your line. Start on your y-intercept, then use your slope, up, down, left, or right. 99.9% of the time, you're going to the right. Going to the right. So that one wasn't so scary. What's scary about this one?
There's a lot of letters.
There's a lot of letters. There's a lot of letters in that one.
This one don't have numbers.
Oh, whatever, they do 2 have numbers. What number is in front of it? Yeah, there's a 1. Does this make it less scary? What's wrong with this? Why can't I use it the way it is?
Backwards.
What do you mean? We need y by itself. We need y by itself. So if I cover this up and I think of this as a 1, how do I move that 1 to the other side? Subtract 1x to the other side. Subtract 1x. Now be careful. What am I going to drag down? -1y. Ray among us. Can I put those 2 together?
No.
No. So I end up with 3 minus 1x. Can I graph it now?
No.
Why not? We got to divide by -1. Make sure you divide everything by -1. Y equals -3
Over x. No, over -1. I mean,
3 divided by, plus 1x, right? Plus 1x. Okay, everybody take a minute on your own. Write down your slope and your y-intercept. I'm going to call on somebody in just a second. Take a minute. Write down your slope and your y-intercept. No. On that equation. Cole, which one you want? Slope or y-intercept? What is it? 1. Agree or disagree? Nicely done. Austin? Is your y-intercept? Do you agree or disagree? Work. What's the first thing I do to graph it? Plot your y-intercept. On your y-axis, put a point at -3. Cool, Miss Hoff. You told me slope is rise over run. How am I supposed to do a rise over run if my slope is just 1? Aiden? Because what? It is not a negative. How am I supposed to graph a slope or use a slope of rise over run if I just have 1? You can put it over 1, right? Your whole number can always go over 1. So if I have a rise of 1, which direction am I going? Up. How far? And right 1. So from your y-intercept, up 1, right 1, put a dot. Up 1, right 1. Technically, you could put a whole bunch on here, right? If you really wanted it to look nice and pretty. If Miss Hoff was grading you on your notes. Thank God she's not. Okay. This is your entire assignment. And I promise you, everything is on your notes. Sit still. We're not done. Everybody opens the assignment. They get to problem number 1 and like, yeah, I don't know how to do this. All day today. All day today. This is so hard. You never showed us this. Okay. What if I asked you to graph y equals 7x? I would write this down if I were you. We just got done graphing. I changed the equation a little bit. Y equals 7x. What things do I need to graph? The slope and the y-intercept. And the only way I can pull the slope and the y-intercept is if y is by itself. Cool. Y is by itself. So what's my slope and my y-intercept? 7 is what? The slope? Agree or disagree? Nicely done. What's my y-intercept? 0. Why? Technically, it should be whatever number we're going to add here. What number, think before you shout, could I add to that equation that wouldn't change it? Brant, say it louder. No. 0, right? You were right the first time. 0. So where's your y-intercept? 0, 0. Y equals mx. Y equals 7x. So where are you going to start? If I was going to graph this, where are you going to start? 0, 0. Then what would you do? Up 7 and right, how far? 1. Remember, it's really over 1. You would count up 7, right 1, and draw your line. Okay? Everything is on here. Has Miss Hoff ever said, you have to do number 1, then you have to do number 2, then you have to do number 3? No, I don't care. If you don't like it, skip it. Build your confidence. I'll tell you right now, if you can get through the first 4, you'll cruise through the last half. Please ask me or Miss Harms for help. We will help you, but don't call me over if you don't have anything written down. Paper in the back. Go to work.